Mr Speaker, I stand and rise in support of this bill.
Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, for allowing me the chance to speak to the Prisoners and Victims Claims 2012 Expiry and Application Dates Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, I'd like to first of all address the mechanics of the primary legislation which was passed in 2005 under the Honourable Phil Goff, and as has been said by a number of our speakers from the Labour Party, we will be supporting this bill because it is just a mere extension of some measures which are in the bill that have sunset clauses, and we are extending that sunset clause from the 1st of July 2012 to the 1st of July 2013 to ensure that victims of crime will still have the avenue of claiming compensation from inmates who may have been mistreated while serving a custodial sentence. And Mr Speaker, I do agree with Phil Goff, and who wouldn't, who said at the time that the principal legislation was passed that most people believe it is wrong that offenders should be compensated for wrongful treatment, but in turn are not required to pay restitution to the victims they harmed. And I think from the tenor of the debate right around the House, most of the MPs in Parliament agree with that. I do also agree and acknowledge the contribution from Dennis O'Rourke from New Zealand First and the Honourable Phil Goff, that I do think it is time for a relatively mature debate around this issue. From the instances that we heard from Phil Goff, the debate wasn't so mature and probably a little political back in 2005. So allow me to get a little political. We heard from Tim McIndoe earlier on that this was an interim measure to make sure that, an interim measure because there is some legislation that hopes to make the measures in the 2005 legislation much more permanent. And I do need to ask the question as to why we haven't had a review when it was stated back in 2005 that we were going to have a review, and the fact that we have to be in the House using the time of this House and the resources of this House to bring in an interim measure for something that is going to be passed this time next year. And one has to wonder why that might be, and one might come to the conclusion that it's because this government has become slightly sidetracked as of late by various scandals and has been a little bit mired in controversy. Which one? If you want to get specific, I might just talk about as to why we haven't had a review, or why we haven't had a permanent solution to what we're doing at the moment. We could mention the bank scandal. We could mention the mess that the ACC is in. We could mention Dr. Smith. But as I said earlier on, we do have to have a mature debate around this, and we do hope that over the time that this bill might be that this bill is passed, we could mention that. But that when we go through the stages of this bill, we will be able to make sure that there is some solid interim measures to make sure that if there are people out there who believe they do have claim to some compensation, and as we've heard earlier, there was only one case that was discovered by the Green Party in the last maybe 3 years or 3 or 4 years, that those who maybe think that they do have claim to some compensation from an inmate, that we do have some measures to ensure that they can get some compensation. This bill was obviously passed under Labour, so that is why we support the bulk of the bill. But as I said at the beginning of my contribution, we do have some problems as to how it has arrived at this stage, looking for an interim fix, and also why we haven't had a review, and also as to why we don't have a permanent solution.
Mr Speaker.
Call Julianne Genta.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare.